Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the PromoMinds podcast. I'm doing a live stream tonight because why not? I wanted to try something new. I couldn't use my regular camera, so I'm using the laptop, but it's all good. So the reason I wanted to do this was because we've had some interest rate changes over the last couple of weeks here, and even the last couple months. So Canada has lowered its interest rate two times over the last couple months, both by 25 basis points. And so it's bringing it down to like 4.5%. And the US interest rate announcement was today, July 31st, 2024, and they are electing to hold. So, what does that mean on a grand scale? And what does that mean for Ontario's housing market? And I'm only speaking to the Ontario housing market because that's the one that I know the best. So, yeah. And if you were to look at across Canada, you'll see that there are very different markets all across Canada. So it's hard to kind of lump everything into one thing. Anyways, as it pertains to the interest rates, looking at kind of a more macro level in terms of North America, I would suspect that the Canadian dollar is, likely going downhill. So the more that Canada cuts the interest rates, or the Bank of Canada cuts the interest rates, and the U.S. dollar, the U.S. Federal Reserve holds interest rates, the further those get apart, the more you're going to see a decline in the Canadian dollar. Furthermore, looking at just Canada's policies on a lot of things, our economy has basically come to a standstill, and a large part of the Canadian GDP is based around real estate. And if you look in the news lately, you'll see that the GTA has a lot of condos for sale. They have, I think, 7 months supply right now. And what's interesting about that is I was listening to the Angry Mortgage Broker, and he was talking about how the GTA is set to have I think it was 20,000 new condos that will come on the market over the next couple of years here. And we're going to start seeing that happen here. And condos, the sales are coming to a standstill. But then on top of that, I don't know, and this is kind of what a lot of experts are saying, is will the people who have purchased new construction condos, will they be able to close? Because if they bought for, say, $1,200 a square foot, and now it's down to closer to 900, then there's going to be some gaps there, and lenders aren't going to like that. So then the purchasers are either going to have to come up with the extra money themselves, or if they refuse to close, they'll lose their deposit and possibly get sued by the developers. So stay tuned for that. That'll be an interesting thing to see. And I highly recommend checking out some of the latest episodes from the Angry Mortgage Broker. And I believe his name's Ron Butler. I will add a little discrepancy here, or not discretion, is that he does swear on his podcast quite a bit. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, so how does that look for Ontario's housing? Well, just looking at what we've seen over the last couple of days, actually, if I can share something here, share screen. See if I can do this. Window. I guess we'll do the entire screen. So this here, monthly mortgage payment for buying a home as a percentage of disposable income. This is Canada between 1975 to 2024, courtesy of Newswire. and they showed this here. As you can see, all these declines in real estate values, how all these panned out. You see a sharp increase followed by a slight decrease. And in the case of the 80s, you saw a very drastic increase after that, followed by slamming in the ground. And then it sort of repeated itself almost a decade later when you got the rise coming up, and then it steadied out and then went up a little bit more before coming crashing down, and kind of was a little volatile coming down with that. We move on to the 2008 global economic crisis, where again we saw prices rise, or mortgage payments rise, then come down slightly, up again, and then come crashing down. And you go all the way here. Here's the pandemic era, way down and then way up. And then we've come down a bit. And that's the big question mark. So what's going to happen now? That's where, if you have an opinion on this, I'd love to hear it, because it seems like we are almost being set up again to see, with the interest rates coming down, you'll see more buyers typically entering the marketplace that will drive it up a bit. But with a recession, on its way, if not already here, despite, I saw, I think with CBC today, there was journalists on there saying, oh, Canada's economy is great, but not so much the fact. Anyways, if you look at that chart, it would appear that what's going to happen is you're going to see people coming back into the market as the interest rates go down, which will drive up the prices a little bit before, the real turmoil hits. And so what's interesting from my perspective here is that when you look at what's gone on over the past even 2 years, you've seen a very heavy overstep of the federal government. They're freezing Canadian bank accounts, which was unconstitutional, by the way. It was deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of Canada, which in that has scared a lot of investors, a lot of citizens in general. But then on top of that, you have the just the tenant landlord boards in Ontario specifically that are, a mess. When I understand that, there's two sides to every story, and, there are bad landlords, there are bad tenants. And the fact of the matter is, people can live in a unit rent free for like a year, just going through this mess. So that's another issue. The taxes that come with it. I think that largely attributed to some of the buyers from 2019, maybe even the start of 2020, if they looked at selling, in the coming years, that might really affect them that way, because prices of homes in general have gone way up. But I would say, because of the high taxation and just the overreach of this particular government, and just, the poor, in my opinion, poor policy decisions with our exports, and, just where we're at that way. And you look at a looming recession coming with, some of the Q2s reports that are out. McDonald's, their sales are down. Starbucks, their sales are down. I was talking to a friend of mine who's very well educated in the markets, and he's telling me that the yield curve in the bond market, it's looking like it's looking as if a recession is on the way with that. And I believe the what was it, the top seven, um, the top seven stocks were all in decline. Nvidia has lost 40% of its stock. I think who else? Meta, I think, was down 30%. Don't quote me on that. Have to look it up. Um, but you see all these inflated bubbles that are coming down. So it'll be interesting to see if people elect to re-enter the housing market, and if that has an echoing effect of bringing up the prices a little bit, and what lies ahead with that. So something to definitely be aware of with that. And furthermore, I want to get some opinions on this because where do we go from here? In the market that I've been looking at, north of Barrie, that, you know, I guess something that I've really paid attention to in recent weeks is like, there's a lot of quote unquote starter homes that are still, between 4 and 500,000, which you're going to require a decent down payment in general. So even to just try to go after one of those it can seem very daunting, and then trying to support that with the interest rates again can be a very daunting task. So I'm looking at this, and then I'm also saying, well, there's really not a lot of good homes that are available at that price point, or there's hardly any even below that. But in the last couple days, I've seen some more come on the market that, even a week ago you'd see that listed for, much higher. So I think we're kind of at that point now where, we have mortgage renewals coming up for people who sign up, in 2020 and 2021. You'll have people who got the 3-year mortgage rates. The 5-year mortgage rates will be in the next couple years here. So people that, if they signed on it or refied at, say 2%, and now rates have gone up, you know, they've doubled, then, you might not be able to support that. And if everything else has also gone up, that's, one of the things that I kind of laughed at was when you see all these politicians saying, "Oh, we need to beat inflation. We're going to beat inflation." Well, when you look at a chart, beating inflation isn't like coming up, and then coming back down to where prices were pre-pandemic. It's coming up and then stopping the rise and plateauing at that new price. So not in all cases, as we just looked at the housing chart, just come down a little bit, but we're still like way up from where we were pre-pandemic. So we have, the cost of living just in general has risen quite a bit. Like I said, the mortgage renewals coming up. So it'll be interesting to see how many people had the FOMO, fear of missing out, jumped in, and maybe not the best idea. And so we could be seeing a cycle here where there's a lot of people needing to get out, and you don't have as many investors. Like a lot of big investors that I know of, they've all taken their business to the States because they just have more, the you get better value for your dollar. They're able to be protected with more laws. Tenant landlord boards are like, it's very, not in all states, but there are still quite a few states that it's, very landlord friendly, where, if a tenant stops paying, then it's a fairly simple process and it doesn't take very long to rectify that. So I've seen a lot of investors take their money elsewhere. And so with all these new, like I said, you're seeing it in the condo world where, all these condos are coming up for sale and nobody's jumping on them. And you're going to have developers that are having 20,000 new units in the GTA alone. And where are the buyers going to come from when people aren't buying condos right now? Um, and then if you get people who are putting in are putting their homes up for sale and they're not able to find those buyers, well, you might see, uh, it's unfortunate, but you might see, power of sales come up. People that are looking to just get out, which again could also drive down the market. On the flip side of that, if you are looking to buy a house, and now is actually a really good time for buyers because um, there aren't a lot of them. And so there'll be more people that have been sitting on the sidelines that are getting in a little bit now. But still, like I said, the cost of living just in general has gone up so much that just to get into some of these houses, you're looking at, 30, 40, 50 grand just to get what's called a starter home. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years, but I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. Like what are you seeing where you're at, and what are your opinions on this? Because like I said, this is just what I'm seeing and what we're dealing with. And so yeah, it'd be very interesting to hear what you have to say. So leave a comment below, send a DM, reach out. If you're listening to this, reach out. I recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel here because I'm going to be doing more of these updates coming up. And I just finished a series for the Meet Your Contractor series. Where do we take that? What is in store for that? Because there's a lot of construction in Ontario that has come to a standstill or is declining. I saw an article the other day talked about how um, Canada in general has so many tradespeople and not the construction um, projects that are going to sustain them. So it's a very interesting time, to say the least. But these are the times where you stop and you go, okay, well, what am I seeing in real time, and what has happened in the past? Because most people who, my age group, who were born in the 90s, they've never really seen market turmoil before. You might have seen it in 2008, but you weren't really old enough to experience it. Um, but other than that, we've just seen up markets. So it's interesting when you take a look at kind of all the data and try to project, what's going on with, there's so many people that are either losing their jobs or they're just not working. We have a large immigration scale that's unheard of in recent times for Canada, which have come into the country and in the middle of a housing crisis. And so we are at a spot. And one of the things that I would really like an opinion on this, because we saw kind of in the beginning of the pandemic, we saw BlackRock come into Canada, open up a headquarters in Toronto. And one of the topics that, again, the angry mortgage broker was talking about was what happens when, uh, buyers can't close on these properties. Developers are kind of left hanging. There's, millions, if not billions of dollars that are going to be in limbo here. And so I could see possibly a company like BlackRock seeing this as an opportunity, and with a joint effort of the federal government, being able to maybe incentivize help from the private sector to come in and facilitate these buyouts or bailouts, however that looks, where a company like BlackRock could end up getting a big chunk of that pie. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. We also have two major elections coming up, one later this year in the States and another one in Canada next year. So it'll be interesting to see if whatever happens, if there's policy changes, how that affects things. And it's right now it's kind of a guessing game. What's going to happen? So what do you think? Please comment below, send me a message. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that and kind of fill you into some of the things that I have seen as of late. And it's not all doom and gloom. It's be prepared. And again, if you are in a spot where you are looking to get in the market, now might be a good time to start keeping your eyes open and really looking at what's available. What do you really want? What's feasible? Because that's another thing that was happening to investors is they were, getting kind of in over their head with some of these expenses. So, yeah, how can you, I guess, take advantage of this situation that we're coming into? So, love to hear your thoughts. Send me a message, and as always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the PromoMinds podcast. I'm your host, Steve Leslie, and until next time, take care.